Bella has always been what you'd call a difficult child, willful, defiant. She'd run off on her own when we were out shopping, hiding from us in the long clothes rails in the M&S superstores, or suddenly disappear and resurface miraculously on the carousel at the children's fair in town. There we were, absolutely frantic with worry, while she was doing exactly what she wanted. Not a care in the world. She's always known where she's going. She's not stupid. She's never taken drugs or anything like that, as far as I know. She's actually very intelligent, sensitive. I think that's why she's suffered so much with all this, depression. Well, it's hardly surprising after everything she's been through. And then on top of that, to go through those terrifying bushfires in Australia. We were frightened to death about her being out there all on her own. I'm glad she's come home early. She needs to be with her family now, safe and sound. She'll bounce back. She's a lot more resilient than we give her credit for. She gets it from me, of course. Well, she certainly doesn't get it from her mother.
She was supposed to be on a gap year until September. We weren't expecting her to cut short her travelling and come home this soon. Of course, I'm happy she's back. She's been away far too long. Well, she'll have to get a job though, won't she? Till she sorts herself out. I mean, I can't support her. Now her father stopped her maintenance payments. She's got the money Mum gave her, but, well, she can't touch that. Her father's invested in it now anyway. It's going well. It's growing. Well, she'll need that for her university fees and living expenses in October. We deliberately sent her to the best private schools in the area so that she could get into a really good university. I mean, if she's careful, she might have enough left over for something substantial, like a flat deposit. She could get on the housing ladder, give herself some real security. Oh, I don't want her frittering away that money on any more travelling. It's a waste. Or besides, that money was from Dad too. I mean, all his years of hard graft on the farm. He thought we'd given her too much. Said we'd spoilt her. Even called her a snowflake once. I've always given her oodles of love though. You can never give a child too much love, can you?
It's a relief she's back, believe me. Jenny's spent far too many tearful afternoons on the couch since Bella went on this round-the-world trip. She's not eating or sleeping properly or doing anything meaningful with herself all day. She hasn't started work on any new canvases for months now. It's not right. She needs to get back to her painting. It'll help her get over Peter and all that horrible business. Oh, she won't listen to me. She just frets about everything all the time. She can fret for bloody England, that one.
Mum's settling in with us a bit more now. She's been clearing out some of the packing boxes from the move. Looking at old photos. Reminiscing with Bella about the Greenham Common peace camps. She used to leave me and Dad for weekends at a time, lying down on the road with other women singing Kumbaya, my lord, cutting down metal fences and getting arrested, while me and Dad had to stay at home and look after the farm, working all the hours, trying to keep it from going under. She never really knew how tough it was for me, a teenager, having to deal with Dad on my own while she was away. watching him drink himself into a stupor at night because he was worried sick about the farm losing money.
After David passed, I sold the farm and gave Bella her inheritance. I don't mind she's using some of it to pay for her gap year. I've always believed travelling broadens the mind. It's one of the best educations anyone can get in life. University? There's plenty of successful people that have never been anywhere near a university. They just got out there and lived. Bella's young. She needs to find out what's right for her, not try and fit into some neat little box with a label put on it by someone else. I wish I was young again with all that get up and go. I did have my fair share of excitement back in the day, protesting at the Greenham Common Peace camps in the 80s. Not every weekend, mind you, just the odd one or two, for a few years. I knew David had some of his dark moods whilst I was away, but he didn't resent me being there. He knew I had to go. He knew how fiercely I believed in the cause. He always wanted me to live life to the full. I didn't always agree on everything. I voted Remain, he voted Leave. But we never let our differences come between us. After his heart attack, I didn't go back to the camps for a while. I stayed at home and looked after him. I nursed him back to health. I didn't neglect him.
He was a grafter, was Dad. Dad had a hard life. Lived through the war and food rationing. Used to bang on a bit about young people and free speech. Kids these days, they don't want to work hard. They expect everything to be given to them on a plate. Glued to the mobile phones all day, moaning about their lot. They don't realise they never had it so good, not like us in our day. He was right though. Kids these days are always glued to the phones. He used to warn us about Bella. Watch out for that young'un. Don't let her start up with that stupid business again. Get her some help. She's fragile. God help her if a real crisis comes along. Truth is, we've all struggled. Divorce, death, moving house. The three most stressful events in anyone's life, one straight after the other. It's a wonder we haven't all gone mad.
We'll have to watch what we say now Bella's back. I couldn't cope with another huge row, not after the one she had with David. I could hear them at it, hammer and tongues from the other end of the streets. What the neighbours must have thought. And then not talking to each other for weeks after. They should have sorted out their differences about Brexit before, instead of letting all that bad feeling fester. David never got over it. I know he didn't. I suppose it's to be expected, though. They're both cut from the same cloth, too hot-tempered and stubborn for their own good. I don't blame Jenny for not stepping in. I know her mind was on other things at the time. Between you and me, she's always been a bit of a fence-sitter. She couldn't even make up her mind whether to vote Leave or Remain. I don't blame Bella for starting the row.
I've organised for Bella to see a therapist. She's not been well for a long time. She should have had more support years ago, when all that business started at school. I was going to arrange for her to see somebody after her A-levels, but then she decided to up sticks and go on this gap year, so I put it on hold. It's time she got herself sorted out. I just wanted to get better and enjoy life and be happy for a change. When she phoned me from Australia, But that was the last straw. She sounded so distraught. I mean, beside herself. I didn't know what to say to her to calm her down. I can't help her. She needs proper therapy. Someone fully qualified, a specialist in mental health issues.
Mum's an artist. Well, she's supposed to be, but I don't think she's actually painted anything since her and Dad split up. He's an asset manager in some investment bank in London. I don't see that much of him, not now he's got a new wife. Mum didn't want me to go on a gap year. But I had to. I couldn't handle all the crap that was going on here. The bitchy girls at school, Dad refusing to let me leave because it wasn't a good look for his only daughter to bail out for private education. Him and Mum just not listening to me, the divorce, the massive row with Grandad. Didn't mean to upset him so much, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. I mean, why would he vote to end my right to live and work in Europe? It was all too much. Travelling was the best time of my life. I mean, I only left because of the bushfires. I would have stayed otherwise. But then the panic attack started. Frightening as fuck. And I just wanted to be somewhere familiar and safe. But now I'm back, it feels as though I've never left. The shit I was trying to leave behind. It's still here. And I just want it to go away. All of it forever. I don't even know what's wrong with me. I keep bursting into tears and having these really horrible nightmares about the stuff I saw in Australia. All the images on the news. The blackened forests, the fires raging all around us. Houses burnt to the ground. So many dead animals. Destruction everywhere. It's all stuck in my head. I can't seem to switch it off. It's haunting me. The world I used to know just shattered right in front of my eyes. And now my life is falling apart. What am I supposed to do now? What future do I have? Where do I belong? Where can I even feel safe? Nothing matters anymore. There's this huge sadness sort of wells up inside of me like a tidal wave. I can't stop it. But I'm not a nut job. What, just because I get panic attacks? I'm not really ill. I know Mum's worried about me, she's trying to help me get better. I needed space. Lots of space. And I figured Asia and Australia were about as far away as I could possibly get without actually leaving the planet. I was WIFing in New South Wales. That's short for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. Nothing to do with dogs. Working outside on the farm all day, sticking my hands in the soil, growing my own food, looking after the farm animals, meeting amazing people. walking in the bush and the forest, getting up close to incredible wildlife. Koalas, wallabies, noisy kookaburras. I loved every minute of it. But everything changed when the bushfires came. Annie, the farm owner, she was a real tough character. We'd watched the news together for weeks, tracking the fires as they moved closer and closer. The firefighters warned us to evacuate, but Annie refused. She lived there all her life and she couldn't leave her animals. She said I could go if I wanted to. I knew it was dangerous to stay, but I wasn't due to leave for the US until February. It was early morning on New Year's Eve. We listened to the radio report. The fires were racing towards our neighbourhood at 60 miles an hour. We went outside to check on the animals, but the flames were already leaping up into the sky at the bottom of the garden. The air was so hot, it burnt my throat. I was coughing violently, my eyes itching from the thick smoke. I heard some neighbours screaming and shouting nearby, the flames crackling and roaring, already reaching up to the back of the house. I stood looking at it. I couldn't move. Suddenly, Annie grabbed me and pulled me towards the pool house. We didn't even have time to get the water hoses ready, so she yelled at me to put on her old scuba diving gear, jump in the water and stay under the water with her. The pool was already so warm. When I looked up through the water, I could see the house burning. Thick black smoke pouring off it, embers and ash raining onto the pool surface. Instinctively, I panicked and pushed myself upwards, but Annie locked her arms around my waist, pulled me back down and wouldn't let me go. We sat at the bottom of the pool, staring into each other's eyes, breathing. In and out. In and out. In and out. When we got out, the air was still hot and heavy with smoke. The house and outbuildings were gone, leaving a smouldering, charred pile of debris. There was this eerie, unearthly silence. The firefighters arrived and took us to a safety refuge. They said sheltering in pool water when a raging bushfire comes is against the advice of the authorities. If the fire's hot enough or the pool's too small, it's like a frog in a kettle. Eventually, it boils. They let us go back after a few days. The ground was littered with heaps of dead animal bones. I tried to pick one up, but it just crumbled into powder in my fingers. The fires burnt it so fiercely. That day I couldn't stop crying. Seeing all those people on the news fleeing in fear of their lives, their homes blazed to the ground. Poor dead animals that couldn't escape the flames. What they must have gone through. I was crying so much every day and feeling so tired, but then I couldn't sleep at night either. The nightmares woke me up breathless and sweating. When the panic attack started, I didn't want to stay in Oz anymore. I didn't even want to finish my travelling. I just wanted to come home. I left the farm and went up to Sydney. A huge, murky blanket of orange haze hung over the city. Everyone wearing face masks. Then the protest started, thousands of people marching in all the big cities, a massive wake-up call for action on climate change. The government responded by threatening to bring in new laws to punish them for protesting. The official line was, "Everything's fine, nothing to worry about," but it wasn't fine. You could see the huge amounts of ash in the air, landing on the sea, washing up on the beaches, peppering your skin like black freckles in falling rain. The fires changed things. The Australians who suffered, they're afraid. The devastation took their homes and possessions. It's all gone. The scientists were blaming years of heat waves, extreme heat caused by exponential greenhouse gas emissions, drying out the vegetation, causing it to burn more ferociously. The Prime Minister denied the science. He refused to take action to curb emissions because it would be economically destructive. He said emissions were coming down. They aren't coming down. The government ignored the scientists' warnings and worked with the media to put out fake news and discredit the truth and promote their lies. The firefighters told them this was coming years ago, so why didn't they listen? Why didn't they do more to prepare and to help us? Aren't our leaders supposed to look after us? If we can't trust our leaders, who can we trust?
I've been clearing out the packing boxes from the move. Found this old shoebox full of photos and letters from my time at Greenham Common Peace Camps 30 odd years ago. How time flies. I'd forgotten all about these. We were quite a large group of women protesting against the installation of nuclear missiles, terrified for the future of our children and the planet in case a nuclear catastrophe was about to happen. Spurred on by an overwhelming feeling of impotence, we created a civil disobedience movement together, laying our bodies on the ground, blocking entrances around the perimeter fence or cutting big holes in it, sitting down in the pouring rain for hours at a time on the road outside the gates, wrapped in scarves and hats, linking arms and eating biscuits and chocolate stuffed in our pockets to keep us going. Kind people bringing us hot tea. No violence or confrontations, just lovely, friendly atmosphere. Can you believe people thought we were radicals back then? As mad as a box of frogs. Nowadays, any Tom, Dick and Harry's out on a march or staging a sit-in. I joined in 1982 after they made the camp women only. Oh, there was so much energy and desire, so much creativity and courage. Bit like a grown-up Girl Guides, only a lot more primitive. Living in bender tents, come rain or shine, cooking food for 80 people at a time on wood fires, no electricity or telephones or running water, but always this wonderful camaraderie, this sense of community between us, sitting and talking about the connections between things, human rights, wars, the arms trade, the deforestation of the rainforests. We sent a chain letter round before Christmas 1982 to plan an Embrace the Base event. Well, we didn't have mobile phones back then, did we? I think around 30,000 women responded to it. The motor bay was chock-a-block with transit vans full of women. The traffic jams stretched for miles. It was a wonderful experience, joining hands and linking arms around the perimeter fence, all 9 miles of it, attaching our personal things to the wire, messages, toys, pictures of our children. Oh, these old photos. Oh, the memories. It was bloody terrifying at times, though. The police used to grab us by the ears and throw us around, or drag us out of our bender tents in the middle of the night and drive us miles away and make us get out and walk for hours back to the camp in the freezing cold. They were always trying to evict us. We used to get our own back by singing to them or keening at them, wailing and howling at the top of our voices. It used to drive them mad. They protected the main gate with mounted police, slapping their thighs to create a rhythm before charging the horses. So we used to sing. You can't kill the spirit. She like a mountain, on and on. She goes on and on and on. You can't kill the spirit. She's like a mountain. Used to build the confidence and change the mood. The horses were absolutely terrifying. They frightened the absolute living daylights out of me. Huge animals with heavy swinging chains hanging from the harnesses. I honestly thought they were going to trample us to death. We couldn't afford to be violent. In spite of the constant police threats, violence feeds aggression. And then the authorities mark you down as warmongering Fruit Loops. So we had to be smart and tactical, protest peacefully. Mind you, the locals hated us. They wanted us out. They refused to serve us in the village pubs or throw maggots or pig manure at us and slash our tents. On New Year's Day, 40 of us climbed over the fence, danced on top of the nuclear silos for hours. We all got arrested. David didn't bat an eyelid, didn't even come to the court hearing with me. You're old enough to know what you're doing. They shut the camps down eventually. But I never forgot them or the wonderful group of unstoppable women trying to do their bit. Happy memories of a beautiful place and a joyous time, in spite of all the hardships, the opposition and the fury, the papers calling us covens of witches, the headlines screaming, "Get back home and look after your kids." It didn't stop us standing up for what we believed in, making grassroots change without making war. President Gorbachev said we'd influenced his decision to meet President Reagan, so all our long years of protesting did work after all. People don't really talk about it anymore, but at the time, nothing else mattered.
I've had panic attacks before. When I was doing my GCSEs and my mum and dad said they were splitting up. It's a really sick feeling in my stomach. I didn't want to go out of the house. I felt really afraid, especially in crowded places. I got out of breath. My heart was beating like mad. I felt dizzy. I couldn't even stand up. Proper frightening. I didn't think about getting help. Just tried to get through it until it went away. I didn't want to make a fuss. I started cutting myself when I was 16. A couple times a week. It was really painful. But it was my pain. I made it. I was the one in control, no one else. Dr. Samuel says I've got PTSD. Not a full-blown mental disorder, so I'm definitely not a nut job. I've got eco-anxiety triggered by what I've witnessed. More and more people are suffering from it. Even professional scientists, because they're angry and frightened or saddened by what they see or read in the media. She said eco-anxiety isn't pathological. It's a sign of good mental health. It means you're not in denial. Humans are highly resilient, built to overcome stress and adversity. We find it hard to process long-term future threats. We expect our way of life to just carry on as normal forever, that the climate crisis won't affect us because it will happen a long way off in the future. We just ignore or deny the danger signs because it's easier. I want to get better. I know I'll get better. I've got to do certain things. Connect and engage positively with my community. Whatever that means. Look after my physical and emotional well-being. De-stress. Yoga and meditation. Cycling, litter picking. Whatever. Oh, talk to my parents and friends. Yeah, right. Well, I can't talk to Mum. She's just depressed all the time. And Dad doesn't exactly do, well, empathy. Haven't really got that many friends anymore. Well, not ones who would understand what's happened to me. My gran's cool, though. She's always been cool. But I definitely wasn't up for that step program thing. Sitting in a circle, talking about myself to complete strangers. Nah. Thanks, but no thanks. Anxiety is a total bitch. Like agonising over what food you should or shouldn't buy in the supermarket in case this product or that product has an impact on the environment. Dr. Samuel says I need to learn how to control it, otherwise it will paralyse me so much I won't be able to live a normal daily life. I have to turn it around and feel empowered instead. Develop resilience. I liked her idea of joining an environmental group though. I need to meet new people anyways. Different kinds of people, not like the ones at school. People on the same wavelength as me, who I can share my bushfire experience with, who care about the climate and won't get freaked out by my anxiety or my rage. I saw some activists from Extinction Rebellion on the telly, digging up turf outside one of the colleges at Cambridge. I'm going to join up. It's time for me and my generation to make change happen in the world. Before it's too late.
Hey, I'm Jordan. I'm Bella's XR buddy. Basically look after her, making sure she's got proper NVDA training. That's non-violent direct action, before she goes on any demos or marches. So she knows what to do in case the police move in and arrest her. Getting arrested is extremely possible when you go on any demo. You have to be fully aware of that. Some XR rebels don't have a problem with it. Some do. Both are totally fine. That's why we have the training, to show you how to avoid it, if that's your preference. But also what to do if it's unavoidable and you get taken away. How to deal with the police, what your legal rights are, and how our regenerative culture helps you cope with the stress and other fallout. My first demo wasn't that scary. It was in the early days of XR. We'd taken over the middle of Trafalgar Square, we were singing songs and talking to the public about who we were and why we were there, answering any questions about climate. Mostly, they were sympathetic, and they wanted to know more. The police weren't sure how to deal with us back then. I got arrested and put in a detention cell for a few hours. That was all. They didn't fire tear gas, or torture us, or beat us up, or fire rubber bullets. Not like they do in some countries. The great thing was the media coverage went off the scale, and the public became better informed about what we're doing and the facts about the climate crisis, which is super important. Protesting with XR gives me a sense of clarity about my own fears about climate change. It allows me to reach out and teach others, hear their concerns, and feel that incredible sense of togetherness and a sense of commitment and kindness, a support for each other. Lots of people say being part of XR is like finding a family. And for me, it really was. I've made so many incredible friends from so many different walks of life. So many different people I would never have had reason to talk to before. People who really care and celebrate each other, who look after each other. I'd never really had that before. Didn't get on with my folks. So XR was finally a place I felt I could breathe. Where people who really care about the earth came together to find common interests, despite being so different. Sure, there are difficult characters, but you make it work. You value each other. And that's why I adore it so much. It's the people who make it. Most rebels support LGBTQ, animal rights, just like I do. They do everything they can to make everyone feel as welcome and comfortable and loved as possible. Just being around people like that. It's truly wonderful.
I'm glad Bella's joined a protest group. It'll be marvellous for her. I often wonder whether David would have had his first heart attack if he'd had a support group. You know, with other farmers. Men like him don't talk about feelings. They were brought up to be real men, grafters from morning to midnight. He built the farm before we joined the EEC, as the EU was known then. He used to collect swill, waste food from local restaurants and supermarkets for free, boil it up in huge vats, then feed it to the pigs. It was common practice until the foot and mouth outbreak in 2001, and then the government banned swill altogether. The small farms struggled or went under, and the industrial farms moved on to feeding cattle with soy. The farm was losing money, and the EU were constantly introducing new health and safety laws. The Common Agricultural Policy was the final straw for David. It was a subsidy system that rewarded farmers for owning land and making it as profitable as possible without having to protect it or nurture it. David cared deeply about the land. He hated the idea of spraying toxic chemicals all over it, killing wildlife and getting into the food chain. He certainly didn't agree with intensive industrial farming. He turned his hand to rare breed cattle for a few years, but there wasn't much money in that either. Well, not after the supermarkets cut his prices down to the bone. Well, people want cheap meat, don't they? The system he'd worked in all his life was destroying everything he'd worked so hard to build. It was devastating.
I was brought up on an industrial cattle farm in Lincolnshire. My dad used to inject the cattle with antibiotics to fatten them up and prevent diseases, so we could make as much money as possible. I did some research into the food industry, watched a few documentaries about how the system works, the huge amount of drugs being pumped into farm animals, the runoffs that leak into the rivers, the Amazon rainforest fires, deliberately set to clear space for cattle ranching. The cruelty and injustice of it all sickened me so much, I decided to go vegan. When I told my parents, they had a monumental blow-up, told me I had to either get over it or leave. I was desperate to get out of Lincoln anyway and live differently, find my own way. So I enrolled on a master's in food sustainability here in London. Why do meat and dairy eaters hate vegans? Maybe it's because they feel threatened, because there's so many new plant-based products coming all the time. Veganism is becoming mainstream. They hate being called out for participating in the cruel and brutal meat and dairy industries that keep animals in disgusting and inhumane conditions and brutally slaughter them in their tens of billions every year, just so we can eat steaks and burgers and KFC and drink milk that was never meant for us. And God forbid you even remotely hint that they give up on animal produce. Cue monumental outrage. Toys thrown out of the pram, hissy fits off the scale. Like, seriously, why should they give up their inalienable right to eat and drink whatever the hell they want and fuck how it's produced? It's like taking candy off a screaming baby. 1/3 of global climate-changing CO2 emissions are created by big industrial agriculture, run by the free market businessmen in multinational corporations. It puts endless financial profit and relentless growth ahead of the conservation of the Earth's finite resources, biodiversities, and ecosystems. It's the indigenous smallhold farmers who are saving the planet by using the most sustainable and eco-friendly farming techniques. They're doing amazing jobs, but there's not enough of them. Our global food system is fucked. Yeah. It's really fucked. Once I graduate, I want to transform the system, change food production, use technology to solve food insecurity and tackle food waste, challenge the way that we produce and consume food, and that'll do more for reducing emissions than cutting down on flights or driving an electric car, although those are good. If the whole planet switched to a plant-based diet and alternative proteins by 2050, we would reduce emissions by 75%. Ecosystems around the world would recover from deforestation while still generating enough food to feed the human population healthily. Okay, right. I can see your eyes glazing over right now. I know I get a little bit worked up over this stuff, okay. But we need to do this now. We need to do this now. We have to be the change we want to see in the world.
I need to speak with my solicitor. I need to call my mother. She needs to know I'm here. I know my rights. What are you charging me with? It's not a crime to protest peacefully in this country. It's not illegal. I haven't committed an offence. You have to call this number now. Tell them to let back office know I'm here. They need to tell my mum I'm here. Let me out. Let me out. I can't breathe. I can't breathe in here. I have to get out now. I have to get out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. A group of rebels locked onto a tower in Trafalgar Square, blocking the road, so the police brought in a JCB cherry picker to get them off. There was a police line around the cherry picker before I got to the tower. We needed to make sure that the machine didn't get to the rebels, so I ran through the police line while one officer was distracted and superglued myself to the JCB. Before I knew it, I had 5 officers on me, pushing my head down, twisting my arm back behind me, holding me there for half an hour, maybe more, in a really uncomfortable position where I felt like my shoulder was going to pop out. They wouldn't let me move or stand up, even though I wasn't resisting or anything. It was about 4 p.m. I'd come straight from school and it wasn't that busy then. My arresting police officer took me into a van. There was a legal observer around me trying to make sure the police didn't do anything wrong. But the officer pushed him away from me. I was trying to talk to him, give him my bus card, asking him to call the solicitor for me, but the police didn't let me speak to anyone. They strip searched me to see what I had on me. I was smart enough to give my phone to another rebel before I got arrested, but I totally forgot that I still had my purse on me. So they immediately got all the info about who I was. The officer was like joking with me about it, saying, "Oh, we know what you young people are like." It wasn't funny. They took my shoes and everything off me, put me in a cell on my own with some legal information on a leaflet. So I read that to pass the time and picked off the glue from my nails. Felt like forever. The on-duty officer was nice. She came to my cell to offer me food, asked me if I wanted anything to drink, made me a cup of tea. But I didn't want to feel grateful. They didn't interview me, just released me under investigation. So they can still charge me at any time within 6 months if they want to. Mum had to wait at the centre for 4 hours before she could speak to me. That seriously pissed her off.
It was the phone call from hell. The one you never want to receive. My own daughter, arrested. I mean, this buddy, Jordan, he was supposed to be looking after her. Did a great job of that, didn't he? He probably forced her into going on that XR demonstration. I've read things about XR. They're an extremist cult and she doesn't even realise. They've obviously brainwashed her. I mean, this Jordan sounds like a militant bloody idiot. He's tried to get arrested on purpose. I mean, that's their agenda, isn't it? How can she not see this? She's just lucky the police didn't charge her. She told me she'd had another panic attack while she was alone in that detention cell. Scratched herself again. God. That's the last thing she needed. I just hope she doesn't start with all that again. I'm not sure I could cope.
It was so unbelievably horrible being in that cell all alone. The walls closing in on me, not knowing when I was going to be released. Freaked the fuck out of me. Mum didn't need to get all worked up and go off on one like that, though. Why can't she see things from my side? And she can't tell me what to do anymore. I'm an adult now. If I want to demonstrate, it's my choice, nobody else's.
Why is my mother incapable of taking this seriously? When she found out about Bella being arrested, you know, she actually laughed and congratulated her on joining the club. She doesn't have the first clue about how things have changed since the 80s. How dangerous all this stupid demonstrating is nowadays. I mean, the police are cracking down more forcefully on protesters now. The punishments are more severe. They put XR and Greenpeace on the prevent list, for God's sake. I mean, classified them in the same category as neo-Nazi groups and jihadi terrorists. Threats to national security. Yeah, and now Bella's name is on the list. Yeah, well, brilliant. Just bloody brilliant. And that list was sent out to schools and universities. I mean, how's that going to look on her CV when she's applying for a job? She needs a degree to get a good job and be financially independent. So she doesn't have to rely on a man to support her, like I did. Well, if she doesn't leave XR, she'll have to leave this house. Maybe that'll focus her mind on what really matters.
Jenny's never had much of a spine, if I'm honest. Sometimes I wonder what she really believes in, if she believes in anything at all. At least I've always had the courage of my convictions to get out there and take part in something meaningful. She's never done anything like that. I've watched her over the last few years while her marriage was breaking up, refusing to accept what Peter was up to right under her nose. wasting her artistic talents, falling into a depressive funk. I'm beginning to think she's the one who needs therapy, wallowing in all this self-pity. It's not good for her. She needs to start painting again. It'll make her feel better. Why won't she listen to me?
I will start painting again, okay? But when I'm good and ready. It's just not the right time now. Mother shouldn't be encouraging Bella to protest. It's not a game. She thought she was saving the world, single-handedly putting a stop to nuclear weapons in the Cold War. Oh, please. The Chernobyl explosion had a bigger effect on nuclear disarmament than her and her marauding gang of Fruit Loops ever did. Let's get that right.
I hate the way Mum talks down to me. She always has to prove she's right. Sometimes I wish I was still on my gap year. Seriously, what's the point in going to university just to satisfy Mum's unfulfilled ambitions? Doing what the system says to live a happy and meaningful life? Getting myself into mountains of debt just to study for a useless qualification? Is that going to help me survive when everything around me starts falling apart? When we're going through the 6th mass extinction? Our education system needs an overhaul. We need to teach the kids the truth about the environmental apocalypse that's coming. They need help. XR's taught me loads about environmentalism. School lessons were pathetic. Stuff like peat bogs and recycling, focusing on our individual responsibility, our need to change. Turn off your taps and all that bullshit. Turn off our lights and save a polar bear. Rather than how do we make our governments change as well? Our education comes from the government. This is about me and my generation's future and the world we're going to have to live in when Mum and Dad and Gran are gone. They've set our economic systems up to suit themselves. They've had the best of times. All we've got to look forward to is shit. Not a hope in hell of getting on the housing ladder and buying your own home. The rental market's a total fucking rip-off. Mindless jobs in soul-destroying call centres or zero-contract gig economy delivery driving. Amazon warehouses where you're lucky if you get a piss break. The fires changed me. Everything I knew just turned upside down. I need to get my head around the climate crisis before I can decide what I want to do with my life. I definitely don't want to have kids. Don't want to bring new life into a world that's going to shit. I want to make things better. Not just for me, for everybody, for the planet. And do something that makes me happy. A job isn't just about making money, is it?
I do not want Bella going on any more of these ridiculous demonstrations with XR. I mean, if they arrest her again, they'll charge her. She'll end up in jail with a criminal record. I mean, actions have consequences, don't they? She got to go to university this year. This could put her whole career in jeopardy. God. I mean, she thinks she knows everything about life. She's only 19, for God's sake. Not this gap year nonsense. Just an extended bloody holiday. She needs to focus on getting a degree and getting a well-paid job that gives her a nice, comfortable lifestyle. I mean, why didn't she understand that? What on earth is wrong with her?
She can't threaten to throw me out. She can't threaten to turf her own daughter out. That's just blackmail. And she was bang out of order for ripping up my XR banner. I painted that with Jordan. It was our banner. Sometimes my mum is just a complete fucking bitch. Thank God I've got the XR region team support team to turn to. They're a lifeline. And Jordan too. He's amazing. I'm still in shock actually. She really frightened the fuck out of me. Like how quickly she lost it, like exploding right in front of my face. I'm so nervous now. I can't relax, I can't sleep, I'm on edge all the time. I stay in my room just so I can avoid her. It's just easier. I still can't forget what I saw in Oz. No matter how hard I try, I can't block it out. It's still there, still massively in my head. Millions of dead animals burnt to death, and it's all our fault. The Black Summer fires were catastrophic because of global heating. And what do? We just keep pumping more and more CO2 shit into the atmosphere. Some days I do nothing but cry and get really fucking angry. I want to tell the world the planet is fucked, that we're fucked, that we need to change how we live, but when I try, I get locked up for it. The politicians don't want to hear what we have to say. They keep trying to shut us up, and the mainstream media don't want to broadcast it. The planet's alarm bells are going off at the max, crying out for us to stop destroying it, and no one is listening.
It's okay, Bella. It's okay. We're listening. The ordinary people, you and me. We know the truth. And that's why we're demanding change. It's getting hotter every single year because we're still pumping out huge amounts of CO2. We're slowly but surely cooking ourselves alive, like a boiling frog, oblivious to global heating because it's incremental. We refuse to take drastic action to save ourselves and the planet from death and destruction. If the temperature suddenly shot up, if it were an emergency, we'd react immediately. We'd do something immediately. But we're paralysed. We stay on the hamster wheel of money and debt, keeping the economic system going that fuels climate change. The planet can't take it anymore. Nor can we. There's a lot of greenwashing going off in the oil industry. They say they've got climate-friendly policies. They're working really hard to move to low-carbon energy, spending millions of dollars every year on advertising campaigns to make themselves look green. Don't believe the hype. They still give vast amounts of money to lobbying groups to fight new climate policies and legislation. Their business agenda hasn't changed one iota. They're still drilling for fossil fuels and spreading lies and disinformation on social media. Scientists have been warning us for decades that climate change is already happening. But the politicians and the oil companies deliberately delay taking urgent action. They've got to keep their cosy symbiotic relationship going. Oil companies donate huge amounts to keep politicians in power, and they give them £1 billion of taxpayer subsidies in return. We're paying for our own destruction.
Look, you really do have to understand how incredibly busy I am. My schedule's absolutely rammed to the rafters. My job is seriously high pressure. I had to squeeze her into my lunch hour. I simply didn't have any other window. I've been really looking forward to seeing her. It's been nearly a year, you know. Of course, I updated her on the latest with Chrissy and the bump. Showed her the latest baby scan photo. Only 3 months till I'm a father again. It's a boy. Exciting, isn't it? Bella could have made a bit more of an effort. This new makeup-free look, it doesn't suit her at all. And I can't for the life of me understand where all this eco-anxiety nonsense, this environmental doom-mongering claptrap has come from. Wanting vegan sandwiches for lunch. Didn't even know she'd gone vegan. She never told me. And what on earth do you put in a vegan sandwich anyway? Lettuce? Her mother said she'd had a few funny turns on her travels, and she's getting some treatment for it. That's good. She needs to get things sorted out once and for all. You must understand. You don't know how hard this has all been for me. Accepting that my own daughter is well, unwell.
I definitely told him I'd gone vegan. Last November when I was in Oz. He called me a crusty. How could I forget that? I reminded him again when we arranged to meet, but as usual he had forgotten, so he changed the subject by telling me about Chrissy and the Bump. As if I give a shit about Chrissy and the Bump. What the fuck has that got to do with vegan sandwiches? He's definitely put on some weight since I left. I was a bit shocked, actually, when I saw him. Tried not to show it, obvs. He needs to change his diet. He eats way too much meat. He'll probably get diabetes and heart attacks and all sorts of shit and die young. He needs to think about that. Now he's going to be a father again. He wasn't impressed when I told him that I joined XR. Couldn't understand why I wanted to join a protest group. I had to impress on him that I'm totally passionate about fighting for this cause. I could have died in those bushfires. I mean, does he even realise how much the devastation I witnessed affected me? The terrible nightmares and panic attacks. He invests in oil companies that pump CO2 into the atmosphere. He's responsible. This year is already on track to being the hottest year ever recorded. The Black Summer Bushfires were unprecedented. Of the fucking scale. 12 million hectares burnt. 3 billion animals killed. This is not fucking normal.
Extinction Rebellion? What? I thought she was kidding me. Some kind of joke. She wasn't kidding. She joined Extinction Rebellion and got on a demonstration with a motley crew of crusty lunatics, bringing traffic to a halt and causing havoc for commuters. What in God's name's got into her? Why get involved with something so utterly pointless? Sometimes that girl really disappoints me. I thought she had more sense. Okay, so she had a horrific experience in Australia, but that doesn't mean she has to instantly morph into a rabid eco-warrior or go vegan and eat strange food. There are other ways of changing things, and it's not by going on silly marches with all those other nutjobs, doing civil disobedience. And why didn't no one tell me she'd been arrested? Not even her mother, eh? Why was I the last person to know? I don't normally agree with Jenny, but about this, actually, I do. Bella's heading for trouble if they arrest her again. She needs to get a grip. I could have done without her spouting off at me about her wondrous vegan and XR Damascene conversion. I'm up to my eyes in it at work. She's lucky I found time to see her at all. You know, I could have been prepping for my international con call at 2 o'clock instead of listening to her giving me a science lesson about greenhouse gases. I just wanted a nice conversation with her about something happy.
Dad's been managing my inheritance money Gran gave me. He says he's making it grow for me. I can't touch it until I'm 21. Seriously frustrating. I don't even know what funds he's invested in, because he was like super cagey when I asked him if there were any fossil fuel funds in my portfolio. I told him I wanted to divest from them and replace them with environmentally friendly ones, like now. I don't want my finances to fund dirty energy. I don't care about the financial returns. It's about ethics. The system's been failing most of the world's population incrementally for years. Not the 1% of they've done well out of it. For the rest of us, the social contract's broken. The machine's broken. The endless, exploitative capitalist model that puts short-term profit and shareholder dividends ahead of long-term sustainability. It's broken. It's destroying the planet. And my future. It's rewarded pollution, environmental decay, and human suffering for decades. We need a better system. One that gives us life, not death. A Green New Deal, a circular economy, more inclusive systems that embrace health, well-being, and nature. If we shift to sustainable models by 2030, the global economy could save trillions of dollars. We can find a way out of this if we start now.
2020 was one of the hottest years ever. Fact. The past 5 years have been the hottest ever. Fact. Temperature records are being smashed all over the world. Fact. It's the new normal. Unbearable heat by 2050 that could displace 1 billion people in India and Asia. A 3-degree rise that could kill the world's population by the end of the century. Politicians need to stop procrastinating and act now. The planet's heading towards an irreversible tipping point. This is an emergency. CO2 concentrations are at a record high. Half of it emitted since the 90s. The world keeps turning, but the world keeps burning. This is why we have to continue protesting. World leaders have failed to stop the worst effects. Time's running out. We have to get all the countries of the world to pull together on this. We have to keep pressing for change at every opportunity, even vote compromise leaders out. They call us crusties or weirdos because we bring public transport systems to a halt. If we carry on business as usual, we won't be able to do business as usual. It's funny how they try and make out like we're the criminals. But we've never deliberately murdered anyone or destroyed the environment. Every day, more and more crimes are being committed against life on Earth by the corporations, by banks and the politicians, all in pursuit of profit and ever increasing GDP.
Dad's company's a multinational investor in fossil fuels. It supports fracking and pipeline projects, Arctic oil and gas exploration with billions of dollars, even after the Paris 2015 climate agreement. I read a leaked report issued to their clients containing the exact same warnings about burning fossil fuels that climate protest groups use. Extreme weather events, famine, displacement, species extinction, and economic collapse. It implicated the company's investment activities in the catastrophic effects of the climate crisis where human life is threatened. Dad didn't like that when I pointed it out to him. He's always been a frequent flyer. He used to get air miles and spend them on cases of fine wines. Just think. All those business trips he could have done via video conferencing. Those exotic holidays 3 times a year he didn't need to go on. Sea level rise will flood coastal cities like New York and London and displace millions of people from their homes. His posh riverside mansion in London is going to be underwater one day. At least I offset my gap year flights. I donated the money to a tree planting charity, and I'm not going to fly in the future if I can possibly help it. You should do the same.
Most financial companies like ours have a pretty sizable investment in fossil fuel funds. It's standard practice in this industry. This leaked report, well, she's obviously done her homework. Her expensive private education didn't go to waste after all. I'm proud of her. She's a clever girl. But of all the days to bring that sort of thing up with me when I hadn't seen her for so long, and then trying to blame me Blame the company as the reason for her shredded mental health? That's a bit far-fetched, even for someone with an overactive imagination. Look, I'm genuinely sorry she went through something so utterly horrific in Australia. But we all know that bushfires have been happening there for years, for centuries, millennia even. It's nothing new. In fact, it's completely normal. What the hell does she want me to do about the bushfires? Go on a march with her and the rest of those lefty loonies? Come on. The company has to put environmental concerns in second place in its investment evaluation process, after our revenue and expenses profile. But we've promised to stop financing coal mining and Arctic oil and gas drilling. We're offering billions of dollars to support clean energy and sustainable projects, just like a lot of companies. We're divesting from coal and we're investing in renewables for future growth. We know about the Paris 2015 agreement and CO2 limits. Admittedly, our environmental policy is still at an early stage, but we're on track to support a transition to net zero emissions by 2050, so there's really no need to worry. In the meantime, we have to keep up with new oil and shale gas projects. Gas is a transition fuel, a step towards lower net emissions. Countries still need huge supplies of energy to run their economies and create prosperity. We can't just cut off all fossil fuel production overnight. The world's economies would fall off a cliff. There'd be a global recession.
Shale gas is still a fossil fuel. All this bullshit Dad expects me to swallow, it is just blatant greenwashing. He has power and influence. He can lobby the executives on the board to completely divest from dirty energy funds and switch to clean, low-carbon ones. We can move to 100% renewable energy with just 1/3 of the billions of dollars we spend supporting fossil fuels. We can create tens of millions of new jobs. Jobs we're going to need now we're coming out of a pandemic. 1/3 of global power capacity is already based on renewable energies.
There's only a tiny amount of her money tied up in fossil fuel shares. She doesn't need to get so riled up about this. These types of funds form the bedrock of most portfolios. Shareholders love them because they give out the highest dividends. I'm making her money work for her. I'm the one who's swelling her coffers. She should be grateful. Instead of coming to my office, getting on her soapbox and ranting at me, thinking she can just tear down the whole bloody system in a nanosecond, trying to transform the world because she's had an epiphany about climate change. I'm a dad, for God's sake, not some tone-deaf blinkered government minister. She's just a tad overwrought, having a bad time of the month. Her mother was a nightmare with hers. All this raging against the machine, it's a rite of passage, nothing more. This desire to tip up the tables is just typical teenage angst. We've all had our anti-establishment moments. She'll settle down as she gets older. She'll feel less inclined to agitate. She'll accept her fate as a cog in the machine, like we all do. That's how society works. It's how we've progressed, how we've improved global standards of living and health over the last 50-odd years. Business, hard work, money. Money is the only true power on this planet. She'll see. When reality bites and she has to get a proper job and support herself. You know, I hate to say this, but sometimes she just sounds like a spoilt brat.
I do love my dad. Even if he is a wealthy male power broker clone who only really gives a shit about his precious investments, coining it in him so he doesn't have to do a real day's work, like, you know, something physically demanding. I still love him even though he annoys the fuck out of me. Even though he doesn't give a toss about his lifestyle exploiting the world's resources or damaging the environment, how it's impacting animal welfare or how his food's produced. As long as he can afford to chow down on the most expensive cuts of steak and slug the finest classic wine every week in fancy restaurants and drive his polluting diesel SUV around town, he couldn't give a flying fuck. Why would he? He doesn't need to. He's reached the top of the corporate ladder. He's got more money than he knows what to do with. He's untouchable. But power and status aren't the only benchmarks of success. Not when they come at the expense of life on Earth.
She said her piece. I got the message loud and clear. But I have a right to defend myself. She forgets I was the one who worked my backside off for years to pay for her education and comfortable lifestyle. That kind of privilege doesn't come cheap, you know? It's all very well mouthing off about how capitalism's caused climate change. She's never complained about being brought up in the lap of luxury. She's never had to struggle for anything. She has no idea what it's like to be poor, to feel hungry. My parents were always teetering on the edge. Dad squandering what pittance he earned as a local newspaper hack on the horses. Mum working all the hours God sent just to put food on the table. I know what it's like to go without. And I'm never going back there again. How dare she tell me how to live my life? Lecturing me on my failings as a parent. Guilt-tripping me about my lifestyle and my work. Whatever I've done was always with the best intentions for her and her mother. She can't condemn me for that. It's not as if I'm a mass murderer. And trying to flight shame me? Huh. Video conferencing doesn't work for every business deal. You have to meet people in the flesh to see the whites of their eyes. It's impossible not to fly at all. I am not going to stop eating meat or dairy just because she tells me to. Yes, I did need to go on all those exotic holidays around the world. I work bloody hard. I deserve a little bit of luxury. My black Range Rover looks great in my driveway. And besides, I got a terrific deal on it. Look, by the time sea levels have risen by 1.5 meters, I'll be 6 foot under. Even she won't be alive by the end of the century, so this climate crisis isn't going to affect either of us, is it? London and New York? Submerged? Seriously? Sometimes this global heating is beyond ridiculous. We're coming out of an ice age, for God's sake. Of course the world's heating up.
The party's over. The music stopped. We're the ones left holding the parcel, only this time the parcel isn't a present, it's a fucking disaster. There'll be more changes for us in the next 50 years than the whole of the last 6,000. 2050 isn't fast enough to make change. We don't have time to do this incrementally. We have to take immediate and urgent action now. We only have until 2030. Even if we cut all global emissions today, temperatures will still keep rising for another decade, at least because of thermal inertia. The politicians and corporations have delayed and denied too long. It's a ticking time bomb.
The last thing I wanted was to have a row. I just wanted some quality time with my only daughter. Have a nice, normal, civilized conversation instead of having to listen to all of this threat of annihilation crap. She sounds like that young girl. You know, the one who raves hysterically about how the bloody house is on fire. Greta, what's her name? You know the one I mean. Greta Thunberg. The one who's had mental health problems. She's a nut job.
And then I had this moment. This really freaking jaw-droppingly epiphanous moment. If he can't see how much his company's linked to global heating, to the death of life on Earth, he's a mass murderer. A complete dick. He even had to ask me, how am I a dick? I mean, what is it that makes you think that I'm a dick? Fuck's sake. Actually, Mum was right about him. He's just a selfish, greedy man who thinks he can do whatever he wants and fuck everyone and fuck everything else.
She didn't have to storm out like that to make her point. She's always been a bit of a drama queen. Blowing up suddenly, flouncing off for no reason. Is that what she really thinks of me? She can't really think that of me. Can she? I'm not selfish. I'm not greedy. And I'm definitely not a dick. Oh, sorry. Look, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you back in 5 minutes? Yeah, 5 minutes max. Speak to you then. Bye. Maybe I didn't spend enough time with her. Or her mother. But no one wants their marriage to break down, do they? It's hard for us men. This type of job takes over your life. You have to hit your targets if you want to get ahead. I only ever wanted to give her and her mother the very best I possibly could. Give her a better upbringing than I had. Everything she wanted on a plate. I was earning the big bucks. Yeah, sorry about that.
God, what was I thinking? I don't know what got into me. I shouldn't have done it. I just got so worked up, you know, and angry with her about it all. I didn't even recognise myself last night. That's so bad. I'll have to apologise.
I haven't spoken to Dad since the row. I don't want to talk to him anymore. What's the point? He doesn't listen to me. He just sneers at me, insults me and everything I believe in. Makes me feel like I'm a failure. I just waste my breath with him. I'm tired of it now. And it's my money, for God's sake. It's my money, not his. He shouldn't be the one who gets to decide how it's managed. That'll stop, though, when I'm 21. Chrissy's his secretary. She's like 20 years younger than him, and now they're married and she's having a baby. In another minute, I'm going to have a shiny new step-family shoved right in my face. When he first moved out, I used to cry myself to sleep. Then I just felt numb. It was the only way I could handle it. I hardly see him now, where he's either crazy busy with work or him and Chrissy are jetting off on some golfing weekend. When we talk, he just sounds so disconnected, amputated. Like he doesn't know who I really am anymore or care that I've dropped off his radar. I just want him to love me again. Like he did when I was his princess. I want to tell him how I really feel. But I can't get the words out. We don't speak the same language anymore. The connection's gone.
When she was little, we used to get on like a house on fire. When she loved me unconditionally and never answered back. What's happened to us? What's gone wrong? This row, it's upset me. I can't talk anymore now. Enough now.
I'm learning to cope with the fear. I'm reframing it, turning it around, using it as a spur instead of letting it affect me. I'm hoping instead of grieving. I finally know what I want to do. I want to work in climate education, tell the truth, reach out to people who are struggling, show them how to live and make decisions in a climate-changed world. Become an eco-trainer. Be the change that I want to see in the world. Today I am really, really excited. I'm meeting Jordan at Euston in an hour. We're going up to HS2 protest camp at Jones Hill Wood. I am just checking that I've got everything. Mobile phone, check, leaving that here in case I get arrested again. Burner phone, check. Water bottle, check. Granola bars, check. Vegan sandwiches, check. Not just lettuce, almond butter and jam. Oh, and this, my bus card with solicitor contact details, very important. And my new banner. Mum painted it herself. It is so beautiful. She is so talented. Oh, and guess what? Gran's coming with us too. I just hope she doesn't embarrass us by singing out of tune.
I tried to call her. She sounded distant. I just wanted to talk to her, make things up. We shouldn't be arguing when we hardly see each other. She's had her problems in the past, but I never actually called her a nut job. To tell you the truth, I've been feeling quite unwell recently. Things have been preying on my mind, you know? Bothering me. We need to patch things up. Get us back on track. I suggested going for a meal in a nice restaurant. Just the two of us. Bit like the old days, eh? I promised I wouldn't order steak. All this constant doom scrolling on social media, this panic and fear of impending catastrophe nonsense, it's messing with our mind. Technology will sort the climate crisis out. We'll find ways to extract huge amounts of carbon from the atmosphere or geoengineer solutions, won't we? Well, we'll have to, if all this climate crisis really does come to pass. So there's no need for her to go tramping around a muddy field and putting herself in danger.
Dad's wrong. I do have a choice. I am going on this protest. He needs to think about what I've said and sell those shares. I'm tired of him endlessly defending the indefensible. I'm tired of his denial. It makes me sick. This is non-negotiable. If he doesn't do this for me, then I am done with him. Forever.
I'm not planning to sell the fossil fuel shares from her portfolio. She wouldn't cut me out of her life completely. She wouldn't do that. Not forever. Would she? As completely ridiculous an OTT. She can't give me ultimatums like that. She can't blackmail her own father.
I had no words left, so I just hung up. Yeah, really. It felt good, really good. I will talk to him again when he's changed his mind. Until then, I'll keep doing exactly what I want to. Gran, where are you? Hurry up. Gran.
Sorry, my darling. It took me quite a while to do my Doc Martens up. The laces are a bit fiddly for my old fingers. I tell you, it feels terrific to be wearing my old protesting boots again. I haven't worn these in nearly 40 years. You know what I'm really looking forward to today? Waving a banner and singing the old songs. I was quite good at singing back in the day. I could teach you young'uns a few tunes. I tell you, there's still some fight in me yet. It's a shame we couldn't persuade your mother to come with us too, but she's going to paint again while we're there, so it's wonderful, isn't it?